Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the 2021 series of How Do We Go Forward? How Do We Go Back? My name is Dr. Fen Kennedy. My pronouns are they and them, and I am coming to you from the stolen land of the Creek Nation, now known as Tuscaloosa, Alabama. How Do We Go Forward? How Do We Go Back began as a way for us to think about returning to dance in the fall of 2020. This summer offers us a chance not only to reflect on where we've come from, but to think about how we can change our communities as we move into another academic year. Every week, I invite two guests to have a conversation with each other about one element of this broader topic. After 30 minutes, I'll invite everyone to turn on their cameras and unmute, and the floor will be open to questions and discussion. This week, the topic is a much needed conversation about accommodation and disability, and joining me are guests Jaesic Feathers and Rebecca RG. Jaesic Feathers is a dancer, writer, musician, DJ, artist, activist, and life coach. They are very passionate about being an agent of change for social justice and cultivating a society free of white supremacy and preventable oppressions. Rebecca RG is a math professor, a social dancer, and a local dance teacher and organizer. She's been learning and practicing dance forms such as blues, modern and postmodern dance, contra, ballet, west coast, swing, lindy hop, and zouk in various combinations since her undergrad years, and teaching lindy hop, blues, and fusion in various locations as she traveled around for academic jobs. Before we get started today, I'd just like to note that medical histories might be volunteered by speakers or guests, but are not a subject for questions at this particular talk. All right, Jay and Rebecca, I know you've prepared questions to get us started. Let's hear it.
All right, thanks for being here, y'all. So excited to dive in. Rebecca, do you want to ask first or receive first?
Sure.
Okay.
So the first thing I wanted to ask is, how have things like disability affected your choices about what kinds of dance you do, like how often you dance, all of that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, for my particular disabilities, I don't really have a rhyme or reason to what I can and cannot do. A lot of it is by trial and error, and a lot of it is like I can do one thing one day and then I'll try it again another day, not so far off, and it will hurt me. So I honestly have just had to develop a really close relationship and listening to my body and understanding, like, okay, I know I need to not overdo it. I've overdone it so many times in the past. And now I'm like finally listening to my body screaming at me like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do you know what you're getting yourself into. I just love dancing. I love partner dance. I grew up doing like the ballet, tap, jazz, and tumbling quad thing as a little kid, and I ended up having to quit at like 10 years old because my body was being my body. And I only came back to dance in college because my roommate was into swing dancing. So, going from swing to blues to fusion to some Latin dances to tango. And then I joined a company in 2019 and was in it for a very brief time, unfortunately, before the pandemic hit. So like I've been through all these different styles and I haven't really found anything that hurts me more or less. Actually, the company probably hurt me the most because it wasn't supported with a partner, and it was all, me contorting my body and doing wild things that I may or may not have should have done, so yeah, it's tricky. It's just tricky. And I know now I do have to enforce breaks while I'm at an evening dance, like if it's in person and everything. Like I'm going into the future, like post pandemic, I'm going to have to enforce a rule with myself, like every 3 songs, whether I love the song or not, whether someone asks me to dance I really enjoy dancing with or not, I'm gonna have to do that because I'm learning. I've learned my lesson. So that's one thing. Aside from that, like styles, as long as I'm with a partner, I can pretty much do anything. Although I do have to be careful with zouk. If I'm not led properly, or if I'm not listening to my body properly, I can actually hurt myself because I have a very unstable, unstable is the word, cervical spine. So not fun, but yeah, how about you? I'm curious.
I think a lot of the things you said are really similar for me, where like it really varies what I can do. I don't always know in advance. Breaks are important. I think which kinds of dance hurt me is not totally identical to yours, but it's the same idea. Like I can't do Lindy because Lindy and my body are not friends. Contra and my body are not friends because like there's a weirdly specific way you put weight on your right foot in contra that I can't do for very long.
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, there were times when I really wanted to like audition for shows or companies and for modern dance, and like I don't think I should. Anytime I take dance like technique classes like ballet or modern for more than say 6 to 8 hours a week, my body gets really unhappy really fast. So part of why I moved into social dance, and especially into things like blues and fusion and West Coast swing and zouk, are those are the things that don't hurt my body. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish company dances would actually like that. When I was a kid, that's all I dreamed about. I just wanted to be a dancer on the stage with my company, and like doing solos or not, like just being in that kind of performance setting. And now it's like, well, I had that dream for a second and it was great, but also no, like like no.
Yeah.
So yeah, blues and East Coast and West Coast is okay. But fusion in general, like because you're interpreting the music with your partner, I feel like it lends more freedom to not hurt yourself. I mean, I've gone both ways. Like I've been safe with it, and I've also not been safe with it. And I would say blues is probably the safest for me. But
So when you're talking about fusion, because there's options, it helps you not hurt. Are you like, the image in my head is, well, they don't know if you didn't do the thing because you didn't know it or you didn't want to or it hurt your body. Like they don't know and they don't have to know because the expectation is you won't always be doing the same things.
right. Yep, exactly. Like and if you're in a certain style of dance, you're expected to do certain moves, right? And even though fusion pulls from those genres, and like there's specific music that people will play that is blues fusion or tango fusion or whatever, there's still a lot of freedom to play with where you're not expected to behave a certain way. And that, like I was saying, yeah, absolutely allows me the space to like not hurt my body all the time. But like I said before too, it does require taking breaks because I can still hurt my body in fusion if I don't calm down. I'm very enthusiastic, okay?
Yeah, like I feel like the more I get excited, the harder it is to remember my body's boundaries. And it's worse because my body actually hurts less when I'm warmed up.
Yep.
It won't start hurting till the next day. And it's just like, I wish my body were better at telling me about my boundaries in the moment and not later when it's too late.
Exactly. Oh my God. Seriously, though. That was very relatable. Oh my God. It always screams after the fact. Yeah.
What about in class?
In class.
Like fusion classes.
Oh. Is this directed at me, or do you want to, Rebecca, if you want to talk about it, that's okay too.
So class is in some ways better because you're going slowly and pausing and thinking about things, but it's often worse because, and it's actually worse for me in ballet and especially ballet than it is in say like a fusion or a blues class, but teachers often have like a specific thing they want you to do with your body and that may or may not work with my body.
Yeah.
Not even a disability issue, just like my knees and my toes don't line up. They never will. And I literally have to tell teachers in advance because otherwise they'll like pressure me about it and force me into something that isn't actually correct alignment for my body.
Yeah.
Because like it doesn't match the standard in their head. And to some extent, social dance classes are less like this, except for like really rigid ones, like West Coast swing. They're like, here's a look you should have.
Yeah.
And my body does not have the look. And some of it is things I can work on, and a lot of it just isn't. And it's hard to, in the middle of the class, in the heat of the class, when the teacher is so being kind and giving you a correction, to be like, that correction just doesn't work for me. I do want corrections. Just not those corrections. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also relatable. I think like it's also okay, so I'm going to dive into neurology a little bit too here, because specific to classes where, I mean, this does happen in partner dances, not as often, but when I was in that company, my director, like, her teaching certain steps that I was just unfamiliar with because I lost my background in dance. I hadn't done it since I was literally 10 years old, you know, any kind of technique. So when she's going over all these things, like, it would take me a lot longer than it normally would for people to just like wrap my brain around the concept, let alone get my body to do it. And then that added layer of my body, not, like you're saying, like, not always fitting the mold of what's expected. And I great, you know, thankfully my director was pretty understanding, but I can only imagine, like, being in like it was her own company too. It was just starting up. So it's not like there's this well established, I don't know, attitude or, I don't know, atmosphere or whatever you want to put it, that like expects this perfect mold. But there was that pressure, and I'm very uncomfortable because I've, unfortunately, shame is accompanied in that. Like, I don't want to feel shame in my brain and my body not being able to do the things that other people can do right away or at all. But then it just creeps in and it doesn't feel good. So yeah. And that, in the heat of the moment, I love that. That's a good segue, if we don't mind, because I wanted to talk about, how do you tell people what you can and cannot do when you're about to dance? Because I've been thinking about this for so long. I've tried different things and it's always uncomfortable and clumsy, and it doesn't always translate well because people just want to get into the dance. And it's like, how do I create a space of, like, okay, we're going to have a dialogue first because I have specific limitations and boundaries. Like, I'd love to hear your opinion.
I don't have good answers to this. I only have things I've tried.
Okay. That's fair.
Right, because some days it's really explicit. Like, I cannot jump. I can't have any high impact landings. And like, that's just easy to tell people at the beginning of the dance, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's fine. But it's really hard when it's more subtle. Like, sometimes when I put weight on this foot, it crunches and I need a minute. It's hard to tell people. Or like, today, if you clap your hand to my back a little too hard, I will wince. And it's not really that you're wrong. It's just me today. And like, how do you
do that?
How do you tell people that? I have no idea. Like, if somebody's doing something that actually hurts me, like, I'll just say ow, or like be like, no, that hurts. But when it's like, this shouldn't hurt me, but it does. Yeah. I think what I do is I tell people the straightforward things and give up on the rest.
Yeah. I was just about to say, like, for me, that's actually what pushes me past my edge, or past, the threshold. Like, I will be doing fine and I'll be taking breaks, but then I'll have a dance where, like, I really want to dance with this person and everything's fine, except it's really not fine at all. And I'm just putting up with the pain because this is how I've always lived. Literally, this is just life. And I know it hurts and it's going to hurt me later, but it would be weird to tell this person, oh, please don't put your hand here specifically, or please don't turn me in the specific way, or please don't dip me. Please don't dip me. Oh my God, please do not dip me. Like, actually, that's one thing I will say. I encourage leads and follows. I mean, everybody should talk about this stuff, but specifically leads. I love it when I get asked the question, are you okay with dips? Right? Like, as we're getting into the dance, do you do dips? It's so simple. It is so simple. And it's like one of the biggest things that I feel like is like one of the biggest boundaries for people, even not disabled, right? Like, everybody has their comfortable, like, where they're comfortable, that level. So why aren't we teaching people and encouraging people to say specific phrases before they get into dancing? Like,
Yeah.
Just one of those things.
And then like follow that up with, even if they said yes, like don't just like drop them. Like like if they said yes, that's okay. If they say yes, maybe like do a really gentle dip where they're like 90% supporting their own weight and see how that
Yep.
goes. And if that goes well and you both look happy afterwards, then you can do more.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, like a little litmus test of like trying things out. That honestly, that would be great. I feel like this is making me think of like structures, right? Like what kind of structures can community leaders encourage for people to fall into? And it's like, depending on how big the scene is, I feel like it's very possible to encourage this round robin where everyone gets to dance with each other at least once. Like if you haven't danced with a person, or rather, if you're going about and you've already danced with a person, dance with someone you haven't danced with yet before you get back to them. And then, so at that point, you have a feeling of what everyone can and cannot do and how they're comfortable. And, you know, I mean, it depends on the song too, right? Like depends on the genre of dance, but I just feel like that could be, and this is not an answer by any means, but I'm just brainstorming. Like that could be maybe a way to get to know each other and have these dialogues preliminary wise before we get into like another hour of dancing together, where you do try more intense moves or whatnot. I don't know.
I feel
It's curious.
like in my house party with 15 people, where I have only invited people who I trust not to
That
hurt
too.
others.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Some of the dances I used to go to had over 200 people every week,
Oh wow.
and
Yeah.
it's just not happening. So like
Yeah.
the verbal norms and also physical norms of trying gentle things first are just like key.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So size matters. That totally makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
cool.
I think
Wanna look at-
there are other things on we're thinking of talking about where like, are there accommodations or support that you want to request but haven't? Or there's stuff that you wish people just like planned so that you didn't even have to ask?
Yeah. I think honestly, if space allows it, and if it's um, excuse me, I would love to have chairs, and this is
Yes.
this is, you know, again, depending on the venue, but like it really makes me sad. And I love that there are separate areas for talking and resting, but it makes me sad when I can't be immersed in the environment while I'm resting. Like I don't want to sit on the floor. I can't stand against the wall for forever. Like give me a chair in the corner. You know, just for like a couple chairs so people can actually enjoy the music and watch the dancing without hurting themselves. Like that would be great as just as a starter. I'm sure there's more, but
Yes.
I know you also wanted to talk about hybrid. Is this the time for that as well?
yeah,
So
actually that'd be
perhaps,
great.
shall we get his thoughts on the other stuff first, and then we can jump back to hybrids?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. How about you, Rebecca? Do you have any like offhand accommodations or?
Yeah. I prefer communities where there's norms around you can say ow if somebody hurt you and it doesn't become a big thing. It just goes, oh, I should fix that. Or, oh, okay, let's take a break. Like, if the community is such that it is okay to say when things hurt you, and that becomes just like a low key, oh, that hurt, let's fix it, instead
Yep.
of like, it's a thing and there are sides, just like
Yeah.
much better. And I realize that's like
Yeah.
subtle and hard to do. But I notice which dance scenes have the norm of you can say ow and which ones don't. And I have feelings about which ones I spend time at.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. That's definitely a thing. Oh God. Actually,
Also,
oh sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah. See, also, not so much competitions, but
Oh, competitions. Speaking of, this isn't exactly disability related, but I'd really wish people would move on from the terms Jack and Jill. Like I don't
yes, thanks.
like that. Can we please stop doing that?
Yes.
Because I am not a Jack nor a Jill, and I would like to compete sometimes when I can, you know. But yeah, I was gonna say that your point made me think about also saying no, like practicing saying no, and like just accepting it, and not, and sometimes it's more on my part when I get upset, but like I have had people be haughty at me or like passive aggressive at me when they see me dancing with someone later, or like we don't catch back up. Like I just want a more understanding environment where no's are okay. And I think there needs to be a better approach to a lot of the time to intervening. Like if there is someone who is consistently leading people in a way that's dangerous, I would like more intervention through leadership. And I don't know quite how to make that happen, but I think that's something that needs to be addressed for sure.
Yeah. And a shout out to Capital Blues has done the best of this that I've seen, in that they have like levels of escalation where they can do the low key, like we just go talk to them thing first. And so it isn't always a giant big deal, but it is if
Okay.
it has to be. But
Yeah.
like, I think that helps that it's not just like either there's no consequences or you're gone, that there's like, we'll support you in being better.
Yes. Oh, oh God. I love when communities actually promote growth. Like we want growth. Like that's what dancers do. We learn and we help support each other. So why wouldn't our environment for actual like dances be the same? Why wouldn't that reflect that? Thank you. That's awesome.
You wanted to talk about hybrid stuff.
I do want to talk about hybrid stuff because I have watched and participated in so many cool opportunities, because I mean, pandemic has been awful on so many levels, and I'm not just dismissing that at all, but at the same time, because of this time we've been put, forced inside, the internet has just birthed all these amazing things. And I've been, DJ opportunities to connect for classes, opportunities to have this whole new medium of participating in social dancing. Like I've been attending virtual CSD, Center of Social Dance, through Philly. And I've also been doing DJ stuff through Dr. J, he goes by. But like I never would have had that opportunity to do any of those things and meet all of these amazing people and be able to DJ or do any of that had this not been what it was. And I'm just so worried that once people get back into in-person swing of things, that opportunity of connection is just going to be gone. And when it comes to accessibility specifically, I can't tell you how many times I've sat at home feeling bad for myself with FOMO, fear of missing out, and all these nasty, icky feelings because my body would not show up for me and I could not go out. Or my brain would not show up for me and I could not go out. Like it's so cool to be able to, like, I attended my first hybrid event like 2 weeks ago now, I think, where I stayed home and I got to watch people in California doing their fusiony thing, participating in the chat, talking with people through, like there was actual interaction. And even though it might be a little extra work to set up a specific camera and have another laptop on hand and make sure the internet's working and everything. Like, I get that it's not always possible, but like, can't we plan something once a month or every other month? Like, I don't even care how often it is. I just don't want to see these doors close because, I mean, literally, I forget his last name, Kyle. He goes by DJ Bolter. But he's out of Orlando. Oh, Kyle, you're here.
Yeah.
Hi, Kyle. Sorry. But he literally got to DJ for Mission Fusion all the way out in California from Florida. Like, that I don't think that happened before the pandemic. If it did, I certainly wasn't aware of that. Was it a little bit? Okay. Well, this still, like, the added addition to actually being able to witness that with me in New York, you know, and be able to participate with people on the floor and on Zoom and just have a great night, even though my body was being mean. Like, that I just feel so sad thinking about that going away, and I don't know how to encourage people. I mean, aside from talking directly to them, be like, hey, can we make this happen, you know, happen, but I can't be everywhere at once, and I don't know everybody that would want to do it, you know, like, it's just like, how do we make that more accessible?
We are coming up on time. What kind of closing thoughts did you want to kind of leave for the for like this conversational part, or any questions for each other that you're burning to get out?
Ooh, pressure's on.
Oh, I feel like there's something I wanted to come back to when we were talking about culture of saying no being okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's always the issue, and I'm going to present an issue, but like I'm not saying it's insurmountable.
Yeah.
But like there's the issue that you have, like, people need to be able to say no. And sometimes it appears like that's in conflict with, we need to make sure people are included. And like, particularly people who are in a minority in the dance scene are included. But like, I feel like these are less in conflict than people make out. Because if you are actively, like, if you scene leaders, recruits that you get to be extra social that night are actively trying to include people in the group, and if you have good policies around if somebody is hurting people or like genuinely being creepy, yeah, that you actually deal with that, people are much more willing to say yes.
Yeah.
Like, there are people I don't dance with because I know they will yank my shoulder out, and I'm not going to do that. And if the scene is addressing like, hey, you know, it looks like you're pulling people around a little bit, like, let's, like, do you want help? Can I support you in fixing that? So
Yeah.
that, and then like, I would then dance with people if they fixed it.
Yeah.
And if they kick the creepy people out, then I don't have to worry about getting hit on. And so I'm much more willing to say yes to dances with cis men I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Which there are some scenes where I do say yes to those dances pretty much always, and there are some scenes where I don't. And a lot of it is the scenes culture.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think, I mean, you did say it, like, it's really up to a lot of the leadership to be active, like, in the scene at all times, not just, you know, lording from over in the wings, you know, which, depending on where you are, isn't always the case. But I'm seeing an increase, I think, in people being more participatory in that way. So yeah, there's hope. I don't know if I have any like closing remarks. I would be welcome to have people ask questions. I'm pretty an open book myself. But as far as like just ending on that hybrid note, like, if you are in your dance scene and you're going back, maybe talk with your leadership about hybrid events, because it is possible and it's really great. And it might not have like a ton of attendance on Zoom, but it's worth a try because you are actually putting effort into being more accessible. And I don't think that's a bad thing ever. So.
All right. Mighty notes to end on. Okay, thank you so much, Jay, and thank you so much, Rebecca. I am going to invite everybody to turn on their microphones if they want to, and turn on their cameras if they want to. And I'm going to go over the asking questions procedure. But first of all, I bet some of you have been wondering what the reunion next week is, huh? The reunion next week is all the guests from last year. Well, not all of them. Some of them are busy, but anyone from last year, we are going to be checking in with the folks who gave us so much information about like the 2020 pandemic summer, and we're going to see how they're doing. We're going to see what's changed for them and like the kinds of policies that they put into place and the changes they've made. For some of them, it's been many. So that will be next week. I'm going to remind everyone again before we start asking questions that you are welcome to volunteer medical history. You're not allowed to ask for anybody else's. So let's keep that on the back burner. With that in mind, if you would like to ask a question, please drop your name in the chat. And I will go through folks in the order that they ask and that they drop their names in the chat. So take a minute, or you're also welcome to just make comments at this point. So take a minute, start dropping your names in, and I will give you a minute to think. Before I do that. Otherwise, I'll start asking questions. And perhaps I will start with one that's a little difficult. So I'm hearing you say like, oh, it depends on the venue whether we can have chairs, or it depends on the venue whether we not have quiet space. Why is there not an expectation? Sorry, I'm admitting people. Why is there not an expectation that those things should be standard? Why do we say dependent on the venue, we can have the things that like folks with disabilities need to come to dance? Why is it not, do not select a venue without chairs or the possibility of quiet spaces?
Yeah. I mean, that's it right there. Go ahead, Rebecca.
There's a small part of me who's been starting to think about what might be future fusion venues in the DC area. That's like, we should be so lucky to have more than one choice of venue. But I haven't seen a venue in the DC area which doesn't have at least access to chairs. So
that's good. Yeah. I think it's in part because it's a systemic thing, structurally speaking. Like, we don't have accessible buildings built to begin with a lot of the time, especially if you have an older town that you're existing in. That wasn't, I mean, even with modifications, like I was saying, for Fusion in Ann Arbor, the room that we use is relatively tiny, honestly. It's pretty darn small, and you cannot have chairs in the room or you will take out so much space for the actual dancers. So they have that like outer area where the lights are really bright and the music's not really existent and people can talk, which is great, but like I said before, I would like to be in the room. So it really is, it starts with the buildings themselves, and then it trickles down into leadership not actually understanding that disabled people do dance and do like music and do like community. And it's a mindset thing. Like, this is why I think this conversation is so important, because we need more of this to spread more awareness where people can start adopting that mindset. Like, oh, we've actually been excluding a great number of people. Maybe we should try to stop doing that. So I do think, yeah, like Rebecca was saying, like the venues themselves, and then on top of that, it's just a mindset that needs to be shifted to be more inclusive.
and you'll have like, maybe you think you thought of, the 5 accommodations that were going to be needed, and somebody else brings up another one. It's good to be open to doing it. And I know that there are issues of budget and time, but be open to offers of help with those that would help you make the accommodation.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, we're community for a reason, got to lean into that.
I had a great line today. There is a difference between a community and an activity club.
Yeah.
And I think we're going back into a moment where people have to decide which one of those they're going to be.
Yep.
And a lot of kinds of dance in the DC area, people literally make their livings off of them. And so they're creating community to support their living. And it's not so much that that is wrong, is that the incentive structure is I need to do what I need to do to make a living off of this.
Yeah.
And you can exclude a fair number of people and still have enough people left to make a living.
Yep. Yay, capitalism. Yeah, that's a whole thing.
I'm going to pause for a second. Do people have names and questions? Wave at me, give me a signs.
Or comments, observations.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, because I haven't been able to formulate a question quite yet, but like I thought it was interesting. I think Jay, you mentioned like kind of a round robin, but that's actually something that I struggle with is like since I don't know what kind of what kind of thing might get tweaked. Like I don't try and avoid new dancers, but I also like try and observe and try and like get a sense before I just say yes. So I don't know what the question is there, but like
that's just a good point.
Someone has thoughts, go for it.
I have a thought, which is if you're doing the round robin as part of a class and you've already set up the class norm where you've not only allowed students to give each other feedback, but you've taught them how to do it constructively and respectfully, then the round robin might be safer.
Yep.
I like that. It's like saying that feedback to your partner, because that's in blues, that's pretty common. I feel like all the workshops I attended right before the lockdown, they were like, respectfully give feedback, like make it known if something isn't quite feeling right in your body. So
yeah, open dialogue needs to become the culture for sure. Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead. I see questions from Kyle and then Charlene.
Hey, this is simply a comment following up on the round robin idea. As a fusion organizer, not just a fusion dancer, I realized for the dance side of things, I was thinking something I personally have a never, or I try to have a never turn down a dance policy, and I was thinking perhaps something for organizers as far as the round robin idea goes is perhaps organizers should always at the start of maybe a dance, whether or not there's a lesson or a workshop ahead of time, always intentionally, if they can, perhaps prioritize dancing with newer dancers first, which would be a bit visible because newer dancers aren't always at venues asked first to dance, but what that would do is allow those who are familiar with the venue or the space or even the organizer to then maybe ask the organizer, how was the dance with somebody else? That would help them get a little bit of an idea ahead of time. And I know as an organizer, if someone asked me if someone wanted to check in just and they were curious if a dancer was maybe a little bit rough or whatever, I'd be willing to give honest feedback about that. And there's no limit with who I'll dance with. Lead, follow.
Yep.
And if that helps people perhaps get a sense, and then of course that also gives me a chance if someone's really rough and yanking me around, I'll already be trying to work with them from then on out. And that's probably helped if you bug newer dancers first, because you'll pick that up early and be able to maybe address it because maybe somebody's overexcited or maybe they toss people around. So perhaps organizers should organizers should be trying to dance with everybody in the venue for multiple reasons. For the fact that some people, if they don't get any dances, they'll leave after 5 dances. There's a lot of reasons that but and you can't, that sort of hurts, especially if you have a very small fusion scene, but or scene in general.
Thank you, Kyle. Jay or Rebecca, did you want to add on, say things back?
I really appreciate that, Kyle, because I remember back in Ann Arbor Swing, like the organizers were really adamant. Like I think we even had pins or something, or bandanas maybe it was, where we were flagging to new dancers, hey, we're safe and comfortable and come dance with us, or we're gonna approach you. Like there was already this established structure there, but I love the added part of like actually giving feedback. And I did do that occasionally as an organizer, and I would like help them learn the step and everything. But I think there just needs to be, again, more open dialogue over like what's acceptable, what's not, you know, how can we kindly adjust what you're already doing, because you're doing great, you're here and you're learning and it's awesome, you're participating, yay. But also like, maybe don't yank your follow around, or you know, that kind of thing. And it does matter too, like people have to be interested in going to classes to learn more, and some people just don't, they just show up at the dance expecting to like dance around, and that's okay. But I think feedback needs to be established, like maybe make an announcement even at the beginning, like, hey, we have an open dialogue policy here and we're going to help each other get better at dancing because we all love to dance, kind of thing. I think would be approachable.
Rebecca, did you want to say on that question?
Oh, I think the question of how to give feedback during a social dance is more complicated than we should get into here.
Yeah.
I
That's
was just
fair.
going to say that, Kyle, I think your idea is fantastic, but it would also not be an appropriate responsibility to hold for an organizer with a disability that makes them more physically fragile. If that, because either those people can't be organizers or you have to remove that responsibility, because it's like, I would just like to make it written in stone that nobody has to put their mental or physical safety on the line just because they're an organizer.
Yes. Thank
Anyway.
you, Fen.
On that note, I see Charlene had a question, and then Cindy, you no longer have a question. So hit it, Charlene. Or don't hit it, gently touch it.
Thanks for being here.
Sorry, I've been trying to type on my iPad and it's very bad. I actually have to go now, as of 5 minutes ago, but I'm going to quickly say that I think that some of the things that I've been thinking about that connect to a lot of this might be solved a little bit by normalizing ending dances early before the end of the song, because like often I find that lowers the stakes a lot if you're like, say, listening to a live band, or even the DJ has like, you know, poor choice of songs in the first half of the dance, that like, it's okay if you're not like totally on the same page with someone in terms of the rhythm or ergonomics or style, whether or not they're actually hurting you or you're just not enjoying it, or even like something else is coming up, but you would probably like to address it later, like they're wearing a lot of perfume, or like there's something else going on that, you know, they missed the policy on something. To just end the dance early and no one's feelings are hurt. It's just like, this was really fun, thanks, bye. Like, I think that saves a lot of people from prolonged pain, whether physical or mental.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sorry, I had the zip, but thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and contributing. Thank you. That was a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just say, she mentioned perfumes or smells. Yes. Oh my God. Can we please, for the love of all that is good on this earth, stop dousing ourselves before we go into dancing? Because I can't tell you how sensitive I am, and I know other people are, where you'll get into a dance and yeah, it might smell nice, but also I'm gonna choke on it. Like,
especially when you stand about armpit height.
At their armpit. I'm so short, Ben. We are so short.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on that subject. Please don't wear perfumes or very smelly deodorant. You know, we're gonna stink. We're dancing. It's okay. Like, it's gonna be fine. We'll shower after.
I'm going to jump in with a question prompted by my thoughts on Kyle's point. How do we both encourage and protect organizers with disabilities? Because I know organizers are expected to kind of like destroy themselves for the sake of the dancing. And I can't do that. Or the point where I destroy myself comes a lot sooner than my organizer responsibilities end from time to time. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
I don't have good advice, but I'm real interested in hearing people's strategies, because teaching and organizing is something I was just starting to move into pre-pandemic. And I would like not to do that.
Not to you want to teach, just not destroy yourself, right?
Yes.
Is that weird? Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I know I could speak for 2 seconds just on my experience, like having been a coordinator for Swing Ann Arbor for a long time, and then I joined the Kiss Me gang, so the Keep It Simple and Swing exchange. I think you need to have if you're running in a big event, you need to have enough people on your team to cover all the bases. So that means you need to you need to have more than the average amount of people.
Hire, pay people.
Yeah, or actually hire, you know, that'd be great, but it's a labor of love often, you know, most of the time. Like if I have to sit out because I am hurting, that means there needs to be another person on deck or just already circulating. Another thing as far as teaching goes, I remember like I would run the Wednesday night East Coast beginner all the time, and it would have helped me so much to have somebody else carrying sound equipment. First of all, like I should not have been carrying things long distances into wherever the heck we happen to be put and then teach a class. Like that's the other thing, is finding accessible venues where you're not like maneuvering through different levels and different terrain, like literal, like so I know it's complicated because whatever is available, but yeah, so those two things stick out to me. And then on top of that, having a partner who also is educated enough to teach.
Yes.
So, because if you have to sit down, you can still talk maybe, but people need visualization to actually learn the steps. So having your partner being able to not just be a follower or just be the lead in your teaching, but like actually be able to speak on both parts, that would be great. That could save a lot.
Also, it's so much nicer when both teaching partners have something to say. It doesn't have to be the same. They can fill different roles. But I really hate seeing, and it's often the person who's teaching the lead role, like use their partner as a dance dummy and then drop them and then go back to talking. And like, maybe it's not just, it is about accessibility, and it's also about like, maybe it's just good.
Yes, agreed. Yep.
I am not seeing any other questions in chat. Oh yeah, Sarah, go ahead. Sarah?
Uh-oh.
You had a question?
Did she disappear on us? Maybe she'll be back.
Yeah. Do you want to type it in the chat? You're also welcome to type it in the chat.
I can entertain you guys with an example as a person named Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah. Also, she's probably just having technical issues. So an example, so, you know, just kind of like leading by example. I often find that I have the easiest time stopping in the middle of a dance with someone that I know well. And I have done this lots now where I've been like, oh, turns out I actually don't like this song. And so I think that, what Charlene had brought up about having it being a culture of just saying what you need when you need it. And I think that conversational and expressive culture is what will help a lot of the things that folks are bringing up. Looks like Sarah number 2 is back.
Can I just add, I think it's important then to have social gatherings that aren't always dance the whole time. Because you're right. When you get to know somebody, you feel a lot more comfortable having those candid conversations. And you can only do that if you have the opportunity to get to know them outside of the dancing relationship. So thank you for bringing that up, because that could be another thing communities focus on, is like actual gatherings. I mean, dancing obviously can be involved, but like socialize.
And I'm actually going to interject before we get to Sarah's question, which is that I got into a deep discussion about when disability conflicts with cultural norms, especially marginalized cultural norms. And when I was thinking about, in particular, Black communities, which in a lot of dancers' experiences are much more accessible than white dancer communities. And I said, well, what are they doing? And that was the answer. It's because they're social. And because they have created a community environment. And that makes it possible for people to be part of the community and to like integrate as individuals with what they need. One of the ways we cultivated that when I was running a fusion scene was like we had ice cream social and then a dance and then a class and a dance, and then we'd have board game night and a dance. So like the value that's always placed on dance all the time, elitism all the time, it builds really like we've got to start negotiating a compromise between virtuosic dancing and community building. Yep. And that for me is such an uneasy thing. Sorry, Sarah, I don't want to talk over you anymore. What is your question?
It was very much in line with that. Was basically, can you talk to kind of the tension between asking for accommodation versus like, is this just a value of the dance? And I think, Rebecca, you had a great example with Contra of like the nature of the dance and the way it's set up just doesn't work for your body. So like, how do you navigate that space of like, is this something that we can change? Like, you know, a crowded dance floor or very loud music. Like that's a big piece of the dance for a lot of people and may not be something that could be adjusted.
Yeah. I like dance events that have a quiet, like hangout space that's close enough to the dance floor that it's not like you're off in a creepy corner, but like still is quiet. Yeah. That wasn't a total answer, but.
Actually, Sarah, do you mind just repeating that last bit for my brain?
Yeah, I was just thinking about sort of when there's tension between perhaps an accommodation that you're looking for and something that's like intrinsic to the dance.
Okay. Yep.
And that could be like the dance aesthetic, or that could be something that's the nature of the venue, or, you know, kind of whatever is like, this is the way it is.
Absolutely. So I can speak on that for a second. I do not dance fast zouk without telling the person that I cannot whip my head. I cannot do those spins. It will ruin me. So I think it does fall, unfortunately, a little bit on the player that is, or dancer, I use player, sorry. The dancer that has the disability to speak up and say, hey, I know this type of dance style and it's great, but these are specific things that I cannot do. Are you willing to, you know, work around that? Or do we need to just not dance? And I'm sure there could be a more succinct way to put that so that it's like very quick before you get into the dance. But I don't think that tension's ever going to go away. I think it's just, even if we do establish a greater culture of open dialogue and compassion and understanding, like until it's like foolproof and you can like, it's palpable, you know, like until it's just so established, that tension is just always going to be there until that point. And unfortunately, it is what it is, you know, because our world is not made to accommodate for disability. And even if someone is compassionate and understanding, they're also trained in that dance to do those things. So it's a give and take. And it just has to come down to communicating.
Yes to all of that, and going in a different direction. I'm thinking of in West Coast Swing, the norm at weekenders is that to make room for all the competitions, social dancing doesn't start till midnight.
Oh, God.
And during the pandemic, a whole bunch of dance scenes that did virtual events started them much earlier. And like weekly dances usually start earlier. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'd like to keep that. Because that's one of those, like, if having to stay up all night to social dance isn't your thing and competitions aren't your thing, you probably leave West Coast Swing, or you only go to your local weekly dance and don't go to big events. Speaking of where my brain's at, but yeah, sometimes they're really incompatible. And I don't even know if staying up too late is a disability issue. It's just like a lot of people can't do it.
Yep.
It's not compatible with our work. It's not compatible with our lives.
Yep.
Can I jump in on this one?
Please.
There's something in what Jay was saying as well, which is like, or in what Sarah was saying, like, it's often different in different communities who gets accommodated and how they get accommodated. And some of that has to do with the intrinsic norms of the dance and who dances it. But I think that part of what happens is like, you have to know what's intrinsic and what's culturally valuable in order to find an accommodation that's like, that works within the culture. And some dancers have the expertise to know, like, okay, in this dance style, this would be the valued technical aesthetic, and this is the valued cultural aesthetic, and this is what I can meet with work, and this is what I can't meet at all. This is how I could work around that. And some people don't have that expertise, especially if they're trying to come into a dance for the first time. And I think where we fail folks with disabilities is that instructors also don't know what's intrinsic and what's cultural and what can be shifted and what cannot be. Like, and I think one of the reasons that, like, in the concert dance world, there's a lot of folks adapting dances and accommodating dances far and away beyond what we do in social dance. Because there's a lot of codified knowledge about what the norms and the values of the dance are. And once those are set out, they can be bent and like, they can be a little elastic. So for me, I think part of it is like teaching people not to see requests for an accommodation as in conflict with dance norms and culture. But the fact that there are dancers who need accommodations should be an intrinsic part of every single dance culture. Like, I know of no dance in which people with disabilities do not participate as like cultural insiders. So yeah, so how do they do it? And how do they remain cultural insiders while needing accommodations? And teachers have got to be able to help. So hiring people who know how to teach well enough to help.
Yeah, and it's really tough because how most of us end up teaching social dance is, well, we knew just enough more than other people and we're willing to do it. And that doesn't come with like learning how bodies work. To be fair, even in concert dance, most of my ballet teachers have known less about certain things about how bodies work than I did because I had to learn and they didn't. And like, so it's not just social dance, but it's this issue of teachers don't necessarily know this. And I don't know that we have the culture of teaching teachers to realize they don't know it. And I think it's not so much that they have to go out and do a whole bunch of courses on anatomy and kinesiology, because they have to know that they're not always going to know what works for every body and like be open to working with people's own knowledge of their own bodies. Or like sometimes you say, get help somewhere else because I actually don't know how to help you. Yeah.
I am noting that we are at time, and out of respect for the time, I am going to call it there. Everybody, first of all, let us thank Jay and Rebecca so much for their time tonight. This has been really wonderful and much needed. I am going to turn off the camera. You are welcome, all of you or none of you, to just breathe and hang out and chat a little longer. But again, this is How Do We Go Forward? How Do We Go Back? I hope you will join us for the reunion next week. Jay and Rebecca, you've been absolutely awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fen and Rebecca. And everybody. Thank you. This was so great.
Thank you for organizing, Fen, and thank you other people for showing up, because it was lovely to like see people caring and showing up and being interested in talking about it.
Truly.